Hey everybody, Teching and Barry back again, and before we get into the topic of today's video, I have some announcements to make. I have some bookkeeping stuff we gotta go over. So this is one of those videos where the intro is just information, which I find personally is the best kind of entertainment. Okay, so first and foremost, I am going to be doing my annual charity stream for St. Jude Children's Hospital this month, December 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so December 21st, that'll be not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, 1 p.m. We usually go for like 8 or 9 hours. It can go longer depending on what's happening and how many donations we're getting. This will be the 6th year I've been doing this for St. Jude, which is crazy. And I started doing charity streams in 2018, so it's even longer than that, honestly. But like, yeah, it's a really great cause. Come on by. If you can donate, that's awesome. If you can't donate, that's fine too. Just chill out, and we have a bunch of stuff planned. I'm going to be doing a One Piece tournament like we did a couple, month ago or so, you know, with like a bunch of wacky challenges and stuff. That's one thing I'm going to be doing, but there's some other stuff going on too. So yeah, come on by and, just hang out for a day. That's always a fun thing to do around Christmas time. The second thing that I wanted to announce is that I get messages every now and then asking me why I don't do Bleach content anymore. It's like, hey, Teching, remember your roots. Remember when you talked about Bleach? And it's like, well, I have some good news for you, because I still do, just not on this channel. I made a separate channel for that 2 years ago, or I think about a year and a half ago, called Bongcast, and I've been very bad at promoting it, but I'll put a link to the description, and it's also in podcast format on Spotify and Google Play, and I do episode breakdowns of the Bleach 1,000-Year Blood War arc. I usually do the breakdowns 3 or 4 days after the episode comes out. Episode comes out Saturday mornings around 10:30 for me is when it drops, and then it comes out usually Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll get the episode breakdown out. So yeah, that's how that goes with Bleach, and then the announcement with the St. Jude charity stream, that'll be December 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think that's everything. Barry, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Barry, that's very, very rude. Why did you... He says Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody. Okay, so moving on to today's topic. Well, we don't have any One Piece this week. It's a break week. Next week will be the last chapter of 2024. But before then, I decided just to tackle some other subjects, some other stuff that came out earlier this month. Nothing crazy in terms of One Piece information, but something that's always fun to discuss, and that's devil fruit designs. So whenever a new edition of the One Piece magazine is released, which is usually it's not super regular. It's maybe 3-4 times a year we get the magazine. Sometimes I think even less than that. Oda will draw in every magazine 2 unique concept art for devil fruits that we've already, shown in the story, but we actually haven't seen the fruits design yet, okay? And those are always fun to look at and examine, and just an opportunity to talk about some random devil fruits from earlier in the story that aren't very prevalent right now, but hey, it's remember this devil fruit, right? So, this recent edition of the magazine that dropped in early December, we got Leo's Stitch fruit, or the Nui Nui no Mi, and then we also got Sugar's Hobby Hobby no Mi. All right, so we got to see what both of those look like. Now, I've talked about Sugar's fruit before, the Hobby Hobby no Mi. It is one of the most broken devil fruits in the story, and we're going to get into that again. But I don't believe I've ever made a solid video about Leo's devil fruit before. I did a video about Leo himself, but yeah, we can talk about that today. So let's just tackle Sugar's Hobby fruit, because it is more than just a devil fruit, ladies and gentlemen. That thing is a plot device for an entire arc. The Dressrosa arc and the setup and everything with the toys does not exist if it wasn't for the Hobby Hobby no Mi. So I think something that Oda had to do with that by necessity was I have to make a really, really broken devil fruit that can do 4 or 5 different things, because otherwise this just doesn't work thematically with what I'm attempting to do with Kyros and Rebecca's backstory and the Thunder Soldier and then the memory loss and everything like that. The only way this works is if I guess Oda could have come up with multiple devil fruits to have given the Doflamingo family, maybe the ability to turn them into toys with Sugar's fruit, but then the ability to wipe memories was another person's fruit or something like that. I guess he could have gone that direction with it, but nah, he decided just to put everything into one devil fruit, and that is the Hobby Hobby no Mi. And this is what the Hobby Hobby no Mi design looks like, okay? So at first I was kind of like, what is this thing supposed to be? I like, at first I didn't really like connect the dots. So it's a reference to a couple of things, and I don't even know if there's one reference here that Oda intended, but it does kind of make sense. The first thing I noticed about it was the top of the fruit, the stem, is shaped kind of like the infinity symbol. Like a little bit, like it's like a sideways 8, but that's basically what the infinity symbol is. And I was thinking like, oh, maybe it's that shape because part of the fruit, one of the many abilities of the Hobby Hobby no Mi, is that when you eat it, you stay whatever age you are forever. So Sugar ate the fruit when she was 10, so she's just going to stay 10 forever. So I was thinking like, oh, infinity, maybe like that is part of the reason. I don't know if that was, the reason Oda went with it, but that's like the first thing I thought of. However, no, if you actually look at it, it's supposed to be a yo-yo. Get it? Because it's a yo-yo, because it's a toy. So like toys, hobbies, yo-yo, there you go. And then the top part of it could also be like a winding key for like a wind-up toy, like a little wind-up robot or something. You turn the key and then it like moves around for a little bit, that kind of stuff. So it references to hobbies and toys, yo-yos, and maybe the infinity symbol. I don't know, but it looks like a pretty cool design for a devil fruit there. So let's go through the litany of abilities that Sugar has in this arc. Okay, so first of all, when you eat the fruit, you just stay whatever age you are forever. So that's the first ability, right? I don't know. I guess it's not quite the same as the Op fruit, because if that's the case, then Sugar already has that. It's like everybody was trying to get their hands on the Op fruit because of the Eternal Youth operation, and that's kind of what Sugar has. It's just a byproduct. That's not even the main ability of the fruit. That's just like a side effect of this fruit, okay? So, I don't know. Maybe after like a certain number of years, like, 80-something years, Sugar will just die. Just like she doesn't biologically age, but when she gets to the end of her natural lifespan, she will die anyway. I don't know if that's how that works. Whatever. But that's the first ability of the fruit. The second one is you have the ability to turn people and animals into toys. Okay, so that's ability number 2. All right, so you just come in contact with them, you just touch them, and they just turn into a toy. Any toy that you want. It could be like a wooden kind of like puppet. It could be a robot kind of toy. It could be a stuffed animal. She uses the ability like little black bears to turn all of the tontadas into little stuffed bears. She could just do that. Yeah, so that's the second ability there. Third ability, after she turns somebody into a toy, the memories that other people have of that person or animal will just disappear. And this is a global effect. Like if you have like a happily married couple in the South Blue and the husband is a traveling salesman and he's like, okay, honey, well, I'm going to go to the Grand Line now to sell my vacuum cleaners or whatever. And it's like, okay, dear, you have fun. And then he goes to Dressrosa and gets turned into a toy. Maybe gets turned into one of those toy vacuum cleaners with like the little balls in it that like bounce around. You ever play with those? When I was a little kid, I had one of those. Those were fun. Loud and annoying, but they were fun, And so he gets turned into that thing. The wife back in the South Blue or whatever is just like, I didn't realize I was single. Just like all of a sudden, like, what are all these pictures of this strange man on my wall? I'm just going to take these off, right? Memory loss, it happens just immediately. So that's the third ability. That's kind of a major one. You know what I mean? Like kind of a big one there, okay? Fourth ability is that she is able to make contracts with these toys. Okay, so not only just turning them into toys and they could just go about their business and the memories of everybody else, like they forget who these people are, but she then makes specific rules and contracts with the toys of like, hey, you can only do the stuff that I want you to do kind of situation, right? And so she makes that contract and the toys are unable to break that contract. Okay, if she gives them an order to like go and help Doflamingo, with all the illegal goods in the underground port, they have to do that. They don't have any autonomy to resist, although they kind of do. Like their bodies will move on their own and do whatever order that Sugar gives them. However, inside they are still themselves. So it's like some horrific version of like locked in syndrome where it's like, please end it. I don't want to do this anymore. Please stop. It's so painful. Yeah. So that's going on there, right? So that's 4 abilities. 4 abilities. We have just eternal youth, I guess, and then the ability to turn people into toys, and then memory wiping, and then a mind control, basically, or like being able to control another person's being. Okay, so that's a bunch of different abilities for one fruit. And now there is a big downside with the Hobby Hobby no Mi, and the big downside is if Sugar is knocked out, or like killed as well, but if she's knocked out even, that will be enough to end the entire effect of everything. So everybody that used to be a toy will turn back into normal, and the memory wiping will disappear, and the control that she had, because she only has the control over the people and the animals when they are toys. If they turn back into people, that control is broken, okay? However, even if she's rendered unconscious, the first effect of the fruit, the like eternal youth thing, that'll stay the same. So that won't go away. But other than that, that's how the fruit works. So it's a very high risk, high return kind of thing. And, going back and watching some of the scenes from Dressrosa in preparation for this video, I watched the scene where Kyros where the Thunder Soldier turned back into Kyros. And the first thing he did was he was right next to Doflamingo. I mean, it was a puppet of Doflamingo. It was his Black Knight ability, where it's just like a string clone. But he was like, Doflamingo! And he like just jumps up and immediately is like going for the kill shot. He's going for the head. He's just like, it's done. I'm killing this son of a bitch. And he goes and he swings, and there's a moment where Doflamingo's clone is like, not the real Doflamingo, but the clone is like, oh shit. And the thing is, because of Sugar's ability, Doflamingo even forgot about who Kyros was, and he forgets about anybody that gets turned into a toy. Although it is still kind of up for debate whether or not Sugar herself remembers. It seems to be that she doesn't, but it would make sense if she does, because she's the one turning people into toys. So I'm not really sure about that one, if she remembered that the Thunder Soldier was Kyros the whole time, okay? But I don't think she did. I think that might be even a blind spot for her ability, okay? But at any rate, the thing I realized is that Doflamingo kind of shot himself in the foot a little bit with that, where, he does not even remember everything that happened here. So, Riku Dole III made sure to keep him a person. Maybe that's one of the reasons why Doflamingo didn't want him to be turned into a toy, because it's like, I need to remember that specifically. But the thing is, you're subjecting a bunch of people to, like, memory loss, and your brains have to, like, compensate for that, right? So you have to kind of, like, fill the void inside of your memories of just, like, wait a minute. Like, because, like, objects and stuff don't disappear. So, for example, Kyros had the statue of him outside of Corradia Coliseum, right? And everybody knew Kyros because he was this famous gladiator. Well, then he got turned into a toy. Everybody forgot about Kyros. The statue was still there, though. That didn't fade away. So everybody had to start just making up, like, oh, yeah, that statue of Kyros. Yeah, don't really know what that's doing here. That must have been some, like, mythical figure from, like, way back in the day, like a Hercules kind of figure. Like, that must have been, like, somebody that probably didn't even really exist, maybe like a mythical gladiator from back in the day, and he just stands here. He's a very muscular, broad-shouldered man. He has the sword, he has the armor and the helmet. He's like, yeah, let's just, like, all the gladiators should look up to this, like, mythical figure, basically, almost. Like, that's your brain trying to, like, rationalize what's this statue doing here. Nobody has any memory of who this person is, but yet it's here. And then the same thing, like, also, like I said, like, the example of, like, somebody's, like, partner getting turned into a toy, and then you're just forgetting about that person existing. Like, you could be a happy family, and then it's like, oh, my husband got turned into a toy, lose the memory of that person, and it's like, oh, I never was married, and yet I have a child, but I don't remember who the child's father is. That's weird. And so you maybe have to start, like, rationalizing, like, oh, okay, are you adopted? I don't know. Do you remember your dad? I don't know. Just like, I don't either. Weird. And you just have to work with that, right? So you're messing with the memories of everybody in Dressrosa. The Doflamingo family is affected by this too. They are not immune to this. So I don't know. Doflamingo's plan might have, like, one of the reasons it might have failed is because of, like, the massive memory wipe operation that he was, like, working with there. But anyway, yeah. That's the Hobby no Mi. That's Sugar's fruit. And yeah, pretty broken ability. I have a feeling that even though maybe some of the Doflamingo family members might return at some point, I have a feeling like Sugar's, like, her existence was there to have that plot line going on with Dressrosa, and I don't think that she's gonna pop in the story anymore after this. I don't think we're gonna do that again, where, like, she shows back up and turns a bunch of people into toys and we do the whole thing all over again. I don't think that's the situation, right? So I guess we'll see. I guess she's imprisoned in Impel Down, I suppose. Like, that's where Senor Pink and all the other members of the Doflamingo family are, so I guess that would be the situation, right? But I'll tell you what, dude, if there ever is, like, the massive breakout of Impel Down again, again, where Doflamingo breaks out and like Treble and Diamante are there. Pika's there. If Pika ever got control over Impel Down, that would be crazy. And then Sugar's ability, she could like take out all the guards by turning them into toys, and she can have like an army of like soldiers, of like toy soldiers to help her and shit like that. And then also Mr. Two Bon Clay, he's an Impel Down too, so he could break out as well, you know, in the process. So I feel like there's going to be another breakout of Impel Down at some point. Senor Pink could be swimming through the entire prison. Like there's a bunch of cool stuff that they could do there with the Doflamingo breakout. At any rate, though, so that's the Hobby no Mi. Now, moving on to Leo's ability, the Nui no Mi, or the Stitch fruit, or sometimes the So fruit, okay? It's just the So fruit. It's just so. It's not really that important. One thing that I always found funny, and I didn't even really notice while I was reading Dressrosa until after, Oda introduced 2 devil fruits. I guess not introduced. Doflamingo's devil fruit had been introduced like over a decade before, but it was finally named as the string fruit during Dressrosa. So Doflamingo has a paramecia that allows him to manipulate string. Okay, and he can like manipulate people like, you know, puppets with the parasito thread, and he can use overheat so he can make like a giant whip, and then like, you know, the pentachromatic strings, he can like, you know, slash people with that, and he can make string clones, and he's an awakened user, so he can make everything into string and stuff like that. Then you also have another devil fruit that is very integral during the Dressrosa arc, Leo's Stitch fruit, that also involves manipulating string. Isn't that kind of weird? I didn't even realize that while reading it, but it was like later on, I'm like, there's 2 devil fruits in this arc that involve string. Weird, okay? In fact, I would even honestly say that like Doflamingo's string fruit is the upgraded form of Leo's sewing fruit, because there are limitations with Leo. He can't use his fruit in the same way that Doflamingo can, okay? So Doflamingo is just string in general, and all the things that you could do with string, molding things into string, attacking people with string, slicing people with string like a garrote wire and stuff like that. Right, that's Doflamingo. Leo's is just like how like Osuru's ability might involve soap. It's not the Awa no Mi. It's specifically the concept of laundry. Leo's fruit embodies the concept of stitching things together. Okay, so Leo cannot make an overheat whip. Leo cannot make a clone of himself out of string. He can stitch things onto other things. That's what he does. That's his ability. And this is what Leo's devil fruit looks like. Okay, that one's a little bit on the nose. One thing that's always funny with these devil fruit designs that Oda gives in the magazine is that the fruit themselves really tell exactly what ability you are getting. I mean, for the most part, okay? Like, this one right here seems to indicate, like, okay, there's a sewing needle. I mean, it's a cool design. It's a sewing needle going through the fruit, and then the stem is like threading the needle with a piece of string or twine or yarn or something. And then there's the stitch cross pattern on the fruit itself. So, you know, whereas you don't know exactly what ability you are getting. In fact, wouldn't it suck if you were looking for the Ito no Mi, you were looking for the string fruit, and you find this, and it's like, well, clearly this is the string fruit. It's a fruit that's covered in stitch patterns. Clearly this is the fruit that allows me to manipulate string. Ah, crap, I can manipulate string, but not the way I wanted to. Damn it. Right? Meanwhile, Doflamingo's Ito no Mi just kind of looks like a regular fruit. Same thing with like Buggy's Bara looks like a regular kind of pineapple. Luffy's Gumu no Mi, or the Hito no Mi model sun god. You'd assume the sun god fruit would be shaped like a sun or something. I mean, I guess it is, but it's purple. You know what I mean? Like, so I think this is an example of Oda originally is like, oh yeah, every devil fruit is just going to be like a different fruit, you know? So like, Buggy's is a pineapple and Kaku's was a banana. You know, and that was the original idea of what a devil fruit would be. But then, you know, the magazine started coming out, and it's like, hey, Oda, draw the designs. And he's like, okay, I'm going to have some more fun with this. So we end up getting devil fruits that are kind of plain and ordinary, and then we get devil fruits that are very, very hyper-specific and a really esoteric design kind of thing, right? Now, I will say this. Whereas, yes, a lot of these fruits kind of do indicate what they do, they're still not a guarantee. Case in point, remember Crocodile's Suna no Mi? It looks like a cactus. Okay, but that doesn't, like, eating this, you're not going to immediately assume this gives you the ability to create and manipulate sand, right? Like, it's a cactus. So you're going to be thinking, like, okay, does this give me the ability to turn into a cactus? Does this give me the ability to create needles from my body? Because there is a needle fruit. That's Miss Doublefingers. Like, does this give me the ability to survive in hot, arid climates? It's something to do with heat, something to do with the desert. By the way, crocodile must have been very painful eating that thing. Wouldn't it be a thing, like, if all logias were very painful to eat? Not just disgusting, but they were very painful. Like, you literally do have to eat the cactus in order to get the sand fruit. You literally do have to eat, like, a giant chunk of ice just to get the Hia no Mi. Or, oh god, a Kainu's. It's just a big wad of magma, just like, you have to eat, like, raw obsidian as opposed to cooked obsidian in order to get the power, like, just volcanic obsidian glass in order to get the magma no Mi. But no, yeah, so you don't know 100%. Okay, so with Leos, it could be like, all right, this could give me the ability to manipulate string or cloth. Maybe you could say this is Kinemon's clothing fruit. That also could kind of apply to this, you know what I mean? Something to do with stitches, something to do with needles, you know, like, do I control needles with this? You know, like, how does this work, right? Oh, I get the ability to stitch things together to other things. All right. Oh, and also, going back to Sugar's fruit, the Hobby no Mi, I would have no idea what ability this would give me. You know what I mean? Like, you look at this thing and be like, okay, it's a fruit shaped like a yo-yo. The fuck ability is that gonna give me? You know what I mean? It's like, does it give me the ability to manipulate yo-yos? Can I turn my body into a yo-yo? Like, huh? It's like but it also kind of looks like a wind-up toy. So I guess it has something to do with toys? Do I turn into a clockwork wind-up toy? Do I have the ability to, like, you know, wind things if I eat this? You know, like, is it a clock fruit? Like, what does it do, right? Oh, no, it's just the ability to make you stay young forever, turn other people into toys, manipulate memories, and make contracts with said toys so they'll do whatever you say. Obviously, right? But anyway, going back to Leo's fruit, the stitch fruit. Okay, so one thing that he does seem to require in order to use the fruit is he actually does have to have a sewing needle on him. So that's another, like, that's like a shortcoming compared to, like, Doflamingo. Doflamingo could just make the string just, like, whenever he wanted, right? Like cat's cradle any time of the day, right? Leo carries around a bunch of needles on him, and he's a Tontada, so he uses them as, like, swords and, like, rapiers and stuff like, aha, I challenge you to a duel, you know, kind of thing, right? But those needles are actually very necessary. I think the stitches themselves, like the twine or the thread, that manifests whenever he's, you know, using the stitching motion, but he requires a needle in order to make it work. Does it have to be a needle? Could it be any kind of sharp object? Could he do it with a knife or a pair of scissors or something? Maybe, but we've just seen him using a needle in order to activate. Okay, whenever he stitches an object to another object or a person to an object or whatever, it doesn't seem to leave any visible wounds on you. So once again, if Doflamingo, like, he has, like, the bullet thread where he just fires a string at you and it goes right through you like a bullet, that hurts. It's not the same thing with Leo. Leo can stitch somebody to a wall and actually have, you know, threads going through your entire arm. It could even just be, like, straight through your body or your head, like right down the center, and you don't have any lasting injuries of that. You don't have any pain, you're not bleeding, you're not rupturing any organs or anything like that. And Leo could at any point just remove the threads from you and it just goes out, and, like, the openings are, like, magical and they just close up immediately. So that's an advantage there. You could do a lot of stuff with that, taking out individuals without actually physically harming them. Okay, so that's why, like, Robin was, you know, stitched down to the ground as they were, like, going through her belongings and everything like that at Greenbit, and after the stitches were removed, she just gets right back up and she was perfectly fine. She wasn't in, like, pain or anything like that, right? These stitches are also able to work on, like, any kind of material, so flesh or wood or plastic or rock or even steel. This is something a lot of people forgot about. I forgot about it too. At the end of Dressrosa, when the Marines had to be sort of distracted so the Straw Hats could get away, Leo by himself snuck on board a bunch of Marine battleships and stitched them all together. So these are, like, steel battleships that Leo is just like, okay, I know what I need to do and he goes on there and he stitches up a bunch of these battleships together in the port so they literally cannot set sail, or they'll like immediately capsize, like they can't move. And Leo's just there with his like needles and he's like, ha 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 ha, you know? So that's a pretty good, impressive feat. That's a neat one. I mean, there was the other feat that Leo did when he, you know, tail hammered Charlos into the ground. That didn't really have anything to do with his Devil Fruit ability. That was just Tontata, like martial arts and things like that. But in terms of Devil Fruit feats, I guess that's the best one he was able to do. He was able to stitch like multiple battleships together, and they could not break the stitches. The stitches are like magical. So even though like obviously like if you stitched a battleship or any heavy object with just like regular thread, that would just rip apart immediately. So apparently there's no weight limit with this, I would assume, because it is kind of magical, right? Like you could take a really heavy individual, like you could take Machweiss, you know, like 10,000 ton Machweiss, and like stitch him to a roof of a house. Would he cause the house to collapse? Or would he just stay stitched to it? Or even if he does cause the house to collapse, you know, he's still stitched to the backside of it and he won't be able to get that off until someone like rips it off of him. I'm assuming that would probably happen ultimately. But no, because like when the battleships were all stitched together, they would just rip apart immediately if that's how it worked, okay? If like regular physics and like tensile strength applied to this, okay? So no, when you're stitched together until Leo decides to, you know, remove them, okay? I just realized he would make a killing in the medical field. Although, I guess that's the thing. Like, let's say you have an actual wound on your body. Would you be able to stitch that wound back up? I think, wait a minute. They did that, didn't they? Yeah. So he is able to do that because that's how Law's ability worked, right? Leo stitched up Law's arm after it got hacked off. So, you know, Leo was like, oh, I'll get your arm. I'll stitch it back together. You should be okay. And Law's like, oh, yeah, I'm a doctor, so don't worry. I'll be fine. You know, like I know how to reattach an arm kind of situation, right? So Leo can choose to do it that way as well if he wants. So I guess it's up to him. That's up to him to decide. That's actually a really awesome like thing to switch between. If it's like, I want these stitches to actually physically hurt you, because if he's reconnecting tissue and stuff, then like that's a big deal. It has to physically affect the body, whereas we see other times it doesn't physically affect the body, you know? Interesting, right? The only name technique that he has is the patchwork ability, where he just stitches a bunch of people together with long threads, and at the same time he kind of draws it taut, and they all go slamming into each other really fast, and they bonk each other on the head, and that's how he kind of defeats Jola and some of the other members that the Straw Hats had kind of already defeated. But then Jola comes back later in the arc to kind of use Mansherry's ability to revive everybody, and then Leo shows up to save Mansherry, stitches Jola together, and knocks all of the Doflamingo family's heads together so they don't get revived, like Lao G and Derringer and everybody, right? Okay, so just to double check, I went back to chapter 783 where Leo reattached Law's arm, okay, where he was like planning on stitching up Law's arm, okay? And the way that scene goes is that Leo's like, hey, his arm is all ripped apart, like it's like torn off, like rough edges. It's not a clean cut, right? So I can use my stitch power to reattach his arm, but like that on its own is not going to heal it. That is literally just like I'm just stitching his arm back together, okay? But then they mention, oh, Mansherry's there. She can use her watering can, her heal fruit ability to actually heal the wound. So what I think the ability is there is it's not like actual medical stitches, like he can't really do that. But what he can do is like stick the arm back to the other side of the arm, the point where it got severed, and just like keep it in place where it won't move. And then it could heal on its own, or then somebody else has to heal it. But like that process is not going to be the same as like medical stitches, okay? Is the best way I can describe it. It's still like magical stitches that you remove, and it doesn't leave any like sign that they were ever there. I guess that's how it goes. But yeah, that's really all we get from Leo's ability. We don't get many more other name techniques, and he can just stitch things together, and it's pretty good for like a quick getaway. And since he's a Tontata, he can kind of just like, you know, weave between people's feet and like stitch them to the ground, and they won't be able to move further anymore. They're pirates now, so out at sea, he could just like go on an enemy ship and just stitch the enemy to the ship themselves, or not even the whole body, but just like, you know, stitch the helmsman's hands to the wheel, and then he can't leave the wheel, you know, or stitch like the captain's hand to like the side of the ship, like puts his hand down on the railing and his hand gets stuck to the railing and he can't move. So in terms of like immobilizing an enemy, it would be really, really powerful. Now, when it comes to the awakened form of these fruits, I almost feel like Sugar's Hobby no Mi has to be already awakened. Like, how more broken could this get if it was awakened even further? Okay, so I'm just going to assume that was already awakened, okay? Because Sugar had that fruit for like 12 years, so, you know, it makes sense that she would have awakened it at some point, right? And Doflamingo was also awakened, so that's fine. So Leo's ability to awaken things would probably involve him not having to use, like, the actual needle anymore. Like, he would just, it would be very similar to Doflamingo's in terms of like affecting a wide area, because it is still a paramecia and it involves string. It's just that Leo could probably just, in whatever area he's around, like his domain expansion, home economics class. You know, remember home economics where you had to use the sewing machine and stuff like that? There was a person in my grade that actually had a sewing needle go right through her thumb when we were in like home economics class once, and that was that actually happened, right? But anyway, yeah, so, you know, domain expansion, home economics class, and then just maybe by, like, you know, moving his needle around like a wand or something, he can just like stitch people to the ground, or like he can have the string like flow out of the ground or wherever he needs it to be. Like maybe it like goes out of like his body and then it grabs somebody and it just stitches them to the ground and they cannot move from like a distance away. And he can stitch any object together. Everything is immediately stitched together and nothing can move from something else. Kind of also similar to, if you've ever seen My Hero Academia, very similar to Rock Lock's quirk, that he can like lock things in place. Kind of maybe something like that would be Leo's awakening. I think it would be pretty powerful if used correctly, to just like immobilize everybody in a specific area with magical threads. That's an ability. That's an anime power that could be pretty busted if the person using it is skilled enough with it. Absolutely, for sure. But, yeah, anyway, that's pretty much all I have today for these two devil fruits, the Nui Nui no Mi and the Hobby no Mi. I always look forward to new designs that we're going to get in the magazines whenever the next issue drops, so I just wanted to make a video about those today. All right, so with that being said, we are now going to move on to the letter, wait a minute, you know what letter it is? It's G! G! It's not, you know, not Lao G video, but, you know, Sugar is a member of the Doflamingo family, and Lao G is also a member of the Doflamingo family, and I guess Leo also took out Lao G as well, because patchwork knocked them all together. You know, Sai was the one that ultimately did that, but, you know, Leo helped. Leo helped. Okay. Well, anyway, the letter G of tree facts, we have the ghost gum tree. And whenever I, you know, am looking for trees to talk about, I basically have a list of like 10 trees with that specific letter, and I'll just pick out the one that immediately speaks to me. And I saw the ghost gum, and I'm like, oh, I want to know what's up with the ghost gum tree. Okay, so it's a tree that's native to Central Australia. This is a hardy tree. This is an extraordinary, if there was any stat this tree has, it maximized like fire, heat, and drought resistance, okay? Because this thing is growing on rocky outcroppings in the middle of Central Australia, where it's extremely hot and extremely arid. It grows specifically out of like dry creek beds and stuff like that. This is a really hardy tree, really robust kind of tree. The bark of the tree is glistening white, which is where ghost gum comes from, especially like under the moonlight. So imagine being in like the outback in like Central Australia, right? And there's not a cloud in the sky, and it's a full moon shining down, and then you just see this like almost iridescent, luminescent tree just glowing under the moonlight, and that's kind of where it got the name of ghost gum. It's extremely important to the indigenous tribes of Australia. They use this actually to treat colds at various points. It's also just good for like ceremonial purposes, like there's sacred trees there. Because a lot of bushfires happen in Australia, these trees have adapted to be really resistant to bushfire and be able to like grow even after being burned a little bit, like to thrive in that kind of environment. They can grow up to 50 to 65 feet tall. But yeah, they're not endangered. They're not endangered, but they are important to the Australian like ecosystem. But yeah, they have little flowers that they grow, you know, a little bit, and that's it. That's the ghost gum tree. Just a really cool looking tree, especially when you look at like a photo like this, right? Where everything in Australia is like dried out and everything like that. And then you just have this bright white tree that's just like there contrasting everything else. It's a really interesting, it's just a cool aesthetic looking at this like photo, right? All right. Well, anyway, that's the ghost gum. So next time will be the letter H for tree facts. Ooh, I wonder which one I'm going to talk about next. Let me know. Give me some suggestions in the comments down below. All right. St. Jude Charity stream, December 21st, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you still want some Bleach content, I am still making Bleach content over on the Boncast channel. That'll be it for me today. Thanks for watching. Teching, signing out.